Hey, what's up? Paul Casper here, and today we're going to do a review of a box model layout using HTML5 and CSS, just to kind of do a little sample layout, just kind of get started with building our own websites. We're going to try to make this as easy as possible. One thing we are going to try to do, though, is also make this site completely fluid. So with fluid, basically we want to make sure that it stretches to the size of the viewport. So as we get into meaty queries, we can a little more easily kind of make that magic happen as well. So today's just a review of layout number 1. If you don't have the start files, you can just go ahead and find a couple pictures on the internet, because I'm going to get into Photoshop and show you, basically how to crop these out to proportion to the right size and such. So you'll be able to kind of get that going as well. Other than that, I think we should get started. You can see here what we're going to accomplish today. The first thing we're going to do is I just want to take a look at this in the box model. Is just remember everything's in a box. You can see a layout like this, not the most exciting layout, but you can see lots of squares. And when you get into working with the box model, you need to start seeing the boxes. So here I've got a little overlay of the different elements that this layout is actually going to entail. We got a page rep that holds everything, header, nav, main content, and a side for the sidebar, a couple different image elements, probably going to use figures here. Also, we've got a footer on the bottom. So this layout is really only made up of, what do we got, 3, 6, 7 boxes, maybe 7 or 8 boxes. The trick is to get these boxes to fit together like a puzzle, and that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to try to keep this video as organic as possible. You're going to see probably there's going to be a lot of mess ups, and that's just kind of what happens. Even though I kind of know where I'm headed with this, inevitably something's going to go wrong. So if you don't get it the first time, that's okay. You're going to see how it goes in the real world, even if you kind of have a plan of where you're going to go. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started with the layout. And the first thing I need to do, of course, is to make a root folder on my desktop. So I'm just going to call this puppies. Spell that right. Puppies root. Don't be judgy on my desktop. I'm working on some handouts and stuff too. So I just want to throw this video together. So don't be judgy. Thanks. Appreciate that. We got our puppies root folder, and in the puppies root folder, I'm going to put an images folder because we're going to have some images eventually. I like to do this folder first so that when I get into Dreamweaver, I can go to the site, new site, and connect that root folder directly into Dreamweaver to help with my file management. So I think I called this thing puppies root. All right, I'm going to have a hard time finding that, I'm sure. Click Save. Excellent, we got our images folder. Let's check the files panel. Images folder is all connected good. We need an HTML page, so file new. Make an HTML5 page. If my computer catches up with me. There we go. Give it a title, of course. Puppies, we'll call this layout 1. HTML5. Create. Make sure you save this page before you make your style sheet. Otherwise, you're going to get some weird stuff happening. So I'm going to hit Command S. Make sure I save my untitled page as, of course, the first page of every website, index.html. Save that, and then go to my CSS Designer panel and create a new source. And I'm just going to create a new CSS file. Call this styles. I don't need to add the file extension. Dreamweaver is going to do that for me because I've already linked this whole site together. Click OK. Go back to my files panel, and now I've got an index page, a style sheet, and an images folder. So we got kind of the initial part set up here. Go back to the index page, hit Command S. I'm going to save that down. And of course, taking a look at the design here, I'm working in split view. Nothing up here in the area as well. And we're going to start inserting our HTML elements. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put a page wrap in here to contain the size. Now I'm going to have to use my design reference a little bit to kind of figure out my size. You can see here with my ruler, I can use my selection arrow here as well. My header here is going to be about 900 pixels wide and I think 90 pixels tall. So I've kind of got that already planned out. So this is why we're using our design comps as well, so we can just kind of rebuild our designs in Dreamweaver or just straight up HTML and CSS. So we need a good plan to move forward so we know where we're headed. And with this, I'm going to start with the header. I kind of work my way top to bottom, left to right as I work through this. So basically it just makes a more of a logical flow, in my opinion. You don't have to do it that way, but it's just the way I do it, so you can follow along if you want. So I'm going to go header, nav, main, aside, here, a couple figures in here, footer. And that kind of helps with the flow. Sometimes I put the footer in right away just to kind of keep my page wrap open, or I might do the clear fix trick. I don't know where I'm headed yet, so we'll see what happens. So I'm just going to go there. I know I need a 900 by 90 element there in terms of my header. So 900 pixels wide is my page wrap. Here we go. Dreamweaver. So there's no HTML5 element for the page wrap. So I'm just going to insert a div, which is a generic box basically, right? And I don't have a class written for it yet, so I'm going to put it at my insertion point. Click OK. And content for my div goes here. Now I need to style this div. So in my CSS Designer panel, I'm just going to make a new selector. I'm going to call it .pageWrap. And I use classes for most of my box model layout stuff. It's just a habit I've gotten into. A lot of times we can we don't want to use multiples of an element, so using classes allows you to separate those pieces out. So my page wrap, and then in my properties, I'm going to uncheck show set so I can see all the options here, and I'm going to go with a max width of 900 based on my design comp. It's 900 pixels wide, and of course auto margin left and auto margin right to keep my site centered. And I'm just going to put a background color in here so we can sort of see what's going on. We'll do a background color of white on there, and you can see on the design comp, of course, I've got my page wrap is white here, and then my body color is going to be this tan color. So I'm just going to do white there, and as long as I'm talking about the body element, let's just go ahead and make a selector for that as well. On the body, I'll do a background color. You can find a tan color. You can type the keyword tan in the CSS. Again, just I can always adjust this stuff. Background color of tan. And let's see, let's do a top margin of 0. Take the space off the top. And we got a body background color and a page wrap. Remember the page wrap we gave a white background color, but we can't see it. What's going on? Remember there's two pieces of the pie. HTML and CSS. Right now we've written the CSS, but we've got to apply that CSS in the HTML. Right now this is seen as a generic div tag, so why don't we apply the class to this div by putting our cursor in the div. In the class dropdown, choose page wrap. When we do that, we've now got a 900 pixel wide design. White background. We got placeholder text in here to kind of keep that box open. Again, block elements collapse on themselves, so if there's no content in there, like this, it's not going to look like anything's there when actually there is. So I'm just spacing this out so that we can have a little bit more space to embed our elements. I'm just going to put some garbled text in here right now to keep it open so we can see that. And then I'm just going to put a little comment here saying this is the closing page wrap. I like to put little notes in here because you can see the closing div is pretty generic, and if you get like 5 or 6 nested divs inside of each other, pretty soon you have closing div, closing div, closing div, closing div, and they all look the same. So I just put a little note to say which closing div is with what. So this is my note, this is my closing page wrap. Go over here to the comment section. I'm going to apply the HTML comment, and so now it's just for me to see and nobody else can see it. So we're in good shape there. So again, top to bottom, left to right. Did my page wrap. I'm going to do my header next. And I'm just going to keep my text here for now. And so I could insert my header. I don't have a class for it yet. Can put it at the insertion point. I think I'm going to do this on the fly here. I'm just going to create a new CSS rule at the same time I'm inserting my element. That'll just kind of speed things up a little bit. New CSS rule. I need to give it a name. Again, I'm going to call it page header because I could have multiple headers on my site. In this case I don't, but the habit I've gotten into. Page header here, I'm going to link it into my style sheet, which it's already selected, so that's excellent. Otherwise, just make sure that it says styles or your main, whatever style sheet you're saving to. I'm going to click OK there. Then Dreamweaver is going to give us this old school pop-up box. This is from previous versions. I'm just going to click OK here so I can use the CSS Designer panel. But if you click around in this area, you can find all the same stuff here that you can find here. It just looks a little bit different. So I'm just going to click OK without setting anything so I can use the Designer panel just for consistency for you folks. Alright, so I got the header, click OK. Now I click OK here and you'll see magically that header gets inserted with the class already applied. So that's good news. I didn't have to, I haven't done too much CSS yet on that. I think I'm just going to change the background color on the header just in case the image doesn't load. I'm just going to make it kind of stand out. I don't know, just like something that's going to be there, so that they know there's at least something that's going to be there someday. And let's see, what else should I do? I think that's going to be it. So now we need to actually, oh, I know what we're going to do. We're going to put some text in there. So the title of my site is puppies. So I got 3 W's. Anyway, I just want to put that in there to hold this together and to keep that header element open, because I want to try to keep my text as flexible as possible. So I want to make sure it's typed, that's not part of the image. Clients are going to call and want to change stuff up, and we don't have to want to go back to Photoshop over and over and over to change things. So we want our Photoshop for images, and we want to use CSS and HTML for everything we can. Okay, so we got the puppies there. Let's get a little background image. And again, I know that this is 900 pixels wide by 90 pixels tall. And since it's a block element, it's going to grow to the side of the page wrap, which is already 900 pixels wide. And so I just need to add a height on here to keep it tall enough to stay open. Because when I add a background image, remember the element does not get impacted by the background, so it's just going to shrink up to the text. So I got to put a height in here for now. I found some super secret ways to make that flexible, but that might be the subject of another video. For now, let's just kind of roll with what we've got. Alright, so now we need to go get an image. So I'm going back to Photoshop, and in the support folder you have our support folder. We've got some stuff. We've got the images here, different sizes. We're going to have to save those to proportion, optimize those, and we've got our header. So I'm just going to open up the header in Photoshop, and I'm going to the image size so you can see it's already set up 900 by 90, so we've already got that taken care of. So now it's just a matter of optimizing. So again, to optimize your images, File, Export, Export As in Photoshop, and choose the right format. There's pictures on here, so I'm thinking I'm probably going to go towards JPEG. Let's see what Dreamweaver can do for us. I'm sorry, Photoshop during optimization process. It's taking a minute to load. So the JPEG is 9.5 kilobytes at 73% quality. Just for fun, let's go to PNG. That's at 40. So I can see already. I don't have any transparency in this design, so I'll go with JPEG. And I'll just drop the quality. And sometimes what I like to do is zoom in here to 100%, so I can actually see what the image is going to look like as I'm kind of changing the quality. So between 80 and 100, I can't really see any visual difference. If you get really down far, you can start to see stuff changes. But being a designer, I usually go on the side of, look a little bit better. I'll do that trade-off. And it's still, 8, 9, so I'm not saving that much file space, so I'm okay with that. So I'm just going to stick here, export. Of course, we need to save this to our root folder in our images folder, so that's why we had that set up before. So on my desktop somewhere, oh, that recent place is puppies root. Excellent. So I'm writing my root folder. In my images, I'm going to save puppies.jpg, and if you want to be more descriptive for the search engines or just to look cool, puppies header. Excellent, right? Export there. Back into Dreamweaver. We're going to put a background image into that header. So in the CSS, background images are made through adding it through the CSS. So I'm going to go find the background area, browse to my background image, which is in my images folder. Click open. So I've got that in there. Let's see, what else do I want to do? I think on the background image, I'm just going to take the repeat off, so no repeat, so it doesn't always repeat itself. And we'll keep everything else as is. Alright, so now that I've got a header in the page wrap, I can actually get rid of the garbage text. Here in the page wrap, it's going to stick open, and we've got a great start. Woo! All right. Next up, let's do the navigation. So I'm going to insert, of course, a nav navigation element. So I'm going to be as semantic as possible. This section down here is all the HTML5 stuff. Insert navigation. At the insertion point, I haven't styled the navigation yet, so I can create a new CSS rule for that now. I'm going to call it .pageNav. Again, the dot indicates a class, which is reusable, and I don't want to tie this just to the navigation element, so if I style it, then everything is going to, I don't want everything to change with that particular style. So pageNav, click OK here, just get out of that area, insert, wonderful pageNav here. I'm just going to call this navigation. And a lot of times when I'm designing a website, I'm just going to put something in there for the navigation right off the bat, and I'll go back in and do the whole list, unordered list thing, and do all the styling with the CSS there. I'm just sort of trying to get my box model put together now, so I'm just kind of putting the boxes in place, and then I'll refine later on that. And then, so on the nav, let's go to the designer panel on the page nav, and I'm just going to do a little bit of padding on the inside of the box. I'm just going to do a 1% padding all the way around on that, and I'm going to change the background color. I think the design comp has a gray, so I'm just going to use the gray. You could use whatever color you want to make a pretty design. Because I'm not looking for the colors necessarily, I'm looking for the box model for you folks. So I'm just going to do the gray, do a gray color there. So far so good? Good. I'm going to hit Command S, save that. Again, we got to be careful eventually that we're not trusting live view or design view too much. It's working pretty good for now, but just eventually it's going to start to kind of look kind of funny. So don't forget to test in browser, so I'm just going to save my file. And then I'm going to go down to the real-time preview and preview in a browser. So I'm just going to preview with Firefox. I like Firefox. In Chrome for whatever reason, so I'm just going to preview there. We're going to have to test in all these anyway. But you can see the site centered. We got a background color. The header image isn't completely responsive. Again, that header image is a background image, so it's not as easy as just giving it a percentage. I have a trick for that I'll show you in a different video. So for now we can keep that as is, but you can see the navigation is actually pretty fluid. So, so far so good. Let's keep going. Alright, so let's go back to our design comp. Header, nav, and now we've got this box here. So this is going to be our main content. So I'm going to call this, we're going to use the main element in HTML5, and I'm just going to call it content or page content, something like that. Again, we got two boxes here. They're going to be sitting next to each other. So we're going to have to float these and give them a width in order to kind of have those sit next to each other. Alright, so after the nav, I'm going to insert another element. This element is going to be the main, because it's kind of the main content of my site. Add insertion point. I don't have any styles yet, so I'll create a new CSS rule. .page content. In my style sheet, click OK. Click OK, get out of this box. Click OK again to insert it into the code. Got some placeholder text there. So if you go back out to the support folder, marketing gave us a wonderful bunch of text. So I'm going to open up that text file. And I'm just going to copy the stuff for the main content based on the design comp. So I've got all this. Command C, Dreamweaver, and in the page content, Command V, paste that in. Looks really awesome, right? No, it doesn't. So what we got to do is we're just going to add a little bit of markup to this just to give it a little bit more structure so it acts a little bit better. I'm just going to make my H1 Command 1 in Dreamweaver. This is paragraph text. Shift Command P in Dreamweaver. Got an H3, so it's a Command 3. Got more paragraph text, Shift Command P. And another H3, so Command 3. And got this here. Paragraph text, Shift Command P. And so I've got my opening main, closing main, got the text in here. Doesn't look very good yet, but at least we've got a little bit of structure here, so it's looking a little bit more normal. And what we've got to do is we've got to decide how wide we want this thing to be. Alright? So here's how I'm going to look at it. I know I've got 900 pixels here. And I know that these are the size of my sidebar here, and those are about 250 pixels wide. So already I know that this is going to be less 250. There's a little bit of space here and a little bit of space here as well. So if I've got 250 here, let's just say it's 10 on the side, that's 250, 260, maybe 270. Now I got a little space here, let's just say 280. I'm not exactly sure yet, we'll get there. So I've got about 280 pixels that I know that I can't use, and I've got 900. So let's just go ahead and, on our dashboard, I'll go out to the calculator. We go 900 pixels minus 280, so about 807, wait, what was that right? 900 minus, give or take 280, about 620, so 620 pixels, right? 900 divided by 620 equals, so I was wrong, 620, alright, let's use a calculator here. 620 divided by 900 equals 0.68. So I'm just going to, this is how we get our decimal. Now to make that a percent, we're just going to move the decimal over 2 places. So I'm at about 69% for that main content. So you could just times it by 100 here and get the percentage as well. And I'm just going to round. I'll round up to 69%, and we can always adjust that in CSS later. So that's kind of how I figure out about what size I need. So in the page wrap, or not the page wrap, the page content, in the layout, I'm going to put a width percent-wise, again, because I want to keep it fluid, and I decided I'm going to go about 69%. So about 69%. Now, there's a little bit of space here as well on the left, so that there's a margin between the page wrap and the main content here. So I'm also going to give it maybe a 2% margin on the left to push it in. So it's kind of a starting point. And if we want anything to sit next to it, we've got to give it a float. So this is sitting on the left. I'm going to give it a float left so that my sidebar can sit next to it. Now when I floated this main content, all of a sudden the page wrap shrunk. It's because it's floating, the page wrap doesn't see it anymore. So again, when things are floating, they become invisible to their containing elements, and it's going to automatically snap shut. So if this happens, don't be afraid. All we've got to do is either do the clear fix trick that we did last time, or I'll just do it a real visual way. I'm going to put my footer in right away and make sure that stays at the bottom of my page wrap to hold that box open. So with that, I'm just going to insert. Actually, I'm not going to insert yet because I want to put my cursor where I want it. Right before the closing div, I'm going to go to Insert, Footer, and at the insertion point, I don't have a class yet, so I'm going to create one. Again, I'm going to call it .page footer. Click OK. Click OK. Insert the page footer, and I think my text just says footer. You can see it's up here now. It's ignoring the page wrap because the page wrap's floating. So what we're going to do is we're going to clear the footer on both sides. Say nothing can go around me, so that way I always stay at the bottom. I'll add some padding to the footer as well. Actually, I'll just do the 1% up here so it's all around all sides. 1%, and I'll change the background color also to kind of that gray color just to visually see the difference there as well. So now we've got a footer in there, so it's keeping our page wrap open. Again, if you float elements inside of other elements, they're going to collapse automatically because when you float, they're becoming invisible to the flow. So I just used a footer here to ensure that didn't happen. Alright, so now we have a sidebar. Right? Looking back at our Photoshop comp, we're going to go ahead and put the aside in here, and in the aside we've got 2 pictures and some text. So after my main element, but before my footer, I'm going to use the insert panel, and I'm going to insert an aside. It's sitting as a sidebar. Create a new CSS rule for the aside, and I'm going to call this dot sidebar. Save it to my style sheet. Click OK. Insert that. So I got my aside with the sidebar. In my placeholder text, I've got text for the sidebar, so I'm going to get that in there right away. Command C. Go back to Dreamweaver. put that in my sidebar, Command V, and of course I'm going to Command 2 that text to make it an H2, and then I've got paragraph text also in there, Shift Command P to make that paragraph text. Alright, so let's see here, what am I going to do next? So I've got the text in there, I'm going to put the images in eventually here, but let's just kind of get it sized a little bit right. Alright, so what we have here is 68%, we went across this way, plus the other 2 here, right, so that's 70% already. It looks like we need a little bit of white space on the side here. Let's go another 2%. So that's 72% total. So that means the width is going to be 100% minus 72%, which I think is 28%, about the width that I'm going to make that sidebar. So in my CSS Designer panel, I'm going to the sidebar, and I'm going to go width, percent of 28, and notice I'm going to give it a background color so we can see what's going on, and I'll change it later. But you can see my sidebar is sitting here over on the left because the main content is floating, it doesn't see it. So we can approach this in two ways. We can give our sidebar left margin equal, percentage to the size of the box, or since it's sitting to the right, we can just go ahead and float our sidebar to the right. And then we knew, or we were kind of guessing, size-wise, I'll do a 2% margin on the right to kick it off the edge, and you can see I'm running out of space a little bit. So I got 28, 29, 30, plus the 68 or whatever it was, and then 2% here. So I got a little bit too much space, my math is off. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shrink the main content down a little bit to give this space to pop up. So this is the tricky part of the page wrap. You got to get this to fit together good. So if I go in Design View, it looks like it works, right? Oh wow, Paul, you're amazing. I know I am. Live View, all of a sudden it works again. Well, that's interesting, but there's no space on the right. So I'm going to make sure I save everything. And I'm going to preview Firefox. Let's see what's happening here. Alright, floating to the right. I thought I put a margin on that. Maybe I accidentally took it off. But anyway, sitting pretty good over there. I can tell it's getting pretty close together, so I need to make this main content a little skinnier. So that's the plan here. Page content. Oh, alright, 69. That's why. Maybe it's too wide, so if I go 67, make it a little skinnier. What is going on? See, this is the crazy stuff. I go to my page sidebar, 28. I don't have any margin on the right. I thought I did. 2%. Again, I'm in Live View, so it doesn't look like it's working. Let's try Design View. Still isn't working. Well, go to my page content. Ah, it's still at 69. Interesting. Hey, now we're cooking. And it looks like my page, my width here should actually get a little bit more space in there. It's a little bit too tight still. So I'm just going to go with 65. Alright, so I got 65% here, 2%, 65, 66, 67, and then I got 68, 69 here, plus another, however wide I made this one, another 28, so it's 80, 97, so I got a few percent in here somewhere. So now, it's less than 100% all the way across, so that's why it's working. We'll worry about the upper spacing in a little bit. Remember, all elements come with margin, and so I've got a top margin by default on my H1 and my H2, so we're just going to kind of go ahead and we'll fix that eventually. And I'm just going to keep this red for now until we get the other elements put in so we can kind of see how the flow goes. So I'm going to save. Things are going pretty good. A little bit of weirdness using Dreamweaver, but that's okay. That's what always happens, so don't be discouraged if that happens to you. Okay, we got pictures we need to put in here. Looking at the design comp, we got 2 pictures, and I can see the boxes I'm going to put in here. Now, I'm going to put these in figures to be more semantic. You maybe wouldn't have to do that, but I'm just going to put these in figures. just because to add a little extra importance to them. And to use more HTML5 elements, of course, right? So in the sidebar, I've got a couple figures, and these figures are going before the H2. They're going to stack. So I'm going to go to Insert, and then there's a figure here. Using the Dreamweaver, figures also going to come with a caption, and I don't have captions on these photos. Maybe I should, but I don't. So I'm just taking the first figure off, right, the fig caption, so it's just the figure element, and I'm going to Command C that, and Command V since I've got two figures. I'm going to put pictures in here, right? Save that, and I got to get my pictures ready. So again, based on my design comp, about 250 pixels wide, and I think 150 tall. Yep, so 250 by 150. And in the support folder we got from marketing again, we've got ourselves some pictures. Yay! Let's open those pictures up in Photoshop. So I'm just going to open them both up at once. Again, our target goal is 250 by 150. I'm going to start with the Westies. And I'm going to go to the crop tool. And I'm going to just go to the width, height, resolution preset here. I'm just going to go, 250 pixels by 150 pixels. Now make sure you put pixels in here. I think Photoshop will automatically default to inches, and that is certainly something we don't need on a website here as well. So again, I'm just going to go back here, start from scratch here. I don't want to crop this yet, I want to show you. Go to the crop tool, put in the 250 by 150, and then sort of, all right, don't do that. Don't do that. We'll just move this around up and down to get the crop that we want at that proportion. And I believe the ears are just a little bit cut off and just the paws a little bit. So we're proportionally 250 by 150. Crop it. Then of course we've got to go to our image size to make sure that our dimensions are 250 by 150, which they happen to be. If they're not, again, don't worry about resolution. Just change the 250. And it should proportionally go 250 to 150. This one actually happened to work out. Also going to go back into the St. Bernard here. And I had done these before, so that's why I'm kind of backtracking a little bit. Go to the crop tool, 250 by 150, proportionally. Decide where. Don't do it, Paul. Come on. Decide where you want to actually crop from so you can save the pixels you want. Hit the return key, image size, 250 by 150, okay. So now I got my two images, I've got to optimize them, file, export as, maybe, export as. Should go faster on your machines, I sure hope so. So we got a JPEG here. 250 by 150. Again, it's remembering my settings from before, which is the 73% quality JPEG. 18.6. Okay. If I bring it all the way down, you can see kind of how blurry it gets. We want to not over compress it. But I don't see much of a difference between 100 and 50 a little bit. So if I stay in the 70 range, I'm feeling pretty good about that. And I brought my number down a little bit more as well. So again, one image is not going to be a big deal. That little bit, but if you have a site with 100 images, all that little bit's going to add up to your file size, so to your site size. So I'm going to export that. Of course, I'm going to give this thing an interesting name, like Westy Pups, and I'm going to obey my image naming rules because that's what I know I should do. Westy Pups for sale. I don't know if these are for sale or not, but I'm going to put that for keywords in case someone's looking for them. Maybe this is a site for a kennel or a breeder, so that's what we're going to do. Then St. Bernard, file, export as. So cute. Makes me almost want to get another dog. Almost. So I'm bringing the size down a little bit. Export. This is crazy name. I'm just going to go Saint. Now I'm not putting a dot in my file names, except for at the end. St. Bernard Puppy. Should we sell this one too? I want to keep this one. I'm going to get rid of it. Okay, I'm going to sell this one too. Export. And I hope I saved it in the right folder. I probably didn't. So see, you got to take your time, right? Let's see if I got it in my images folder or not. So I'm going to go into Dreamweaver, check my files panel, and look at my images folder. I got my header. Oh, I did. Yay. Yay me. That doesn't happen usually. Usually I got to dig for this. So we got both of these images in here. So I'm going to insert both of those images into the figure. The first one is the St. Bernard. So back in Dreamweaver, I'm just going to get rid of that placeholder text. And I'm going to go to the Insert panel. Again, my cursor is between the figure tags. It's inside the element. Insert image. And I'm going to choose the St. Bernard. Pop. Hit the return key. There we go. And then I'm going to take the figure out there, insert the image, and it's going to be the Westie. It's going to be the second one. Maybe. Try that again. You have a Westie pup there. Alright. So we're rocking and rolling pretty good. We need some space in here. Have those to size. Go to live view. Oh no, what happened? See? Design view. Pretty. Oh, I'm so good. I'm such a good designer. Everything's great. Live view. Humbling. You are not great. Actually, we are great. It's just a matter of the figure elements automatically have margin with them. So we still are great. We just happen to not trust Design View or Dreamweaver because we go to Live View and we don't like it. And that says, okay, I need to test this in the browser to see what I'm really up to. So we're going to test this in Firefox. Save it. And Live View is actually being more realistic with us. So what we got to do is take the automatic margin that comes with these, with the figure, and we need to tell it to be 0. So that's what I'm going to do. So in Dreamweaver, I'm going to my CSS Designer panel. Now I'm going to hit plus to add a selector, and I'm going to target the figure. And again, I'm doing the figure tag this time. So every tag, so every figure is going to have that margin be 0 by default. So we have to add margin to it if we want, but by default it's going to be 0. And again, live view, now design view, and of course, good old-fashioned test in a browser view, and there's a little bit of space there. So we're doing pretty good with that as well. So again, don't trust these views. Sometimes they're pretty good, they help us out. On my sidebar, I'm just going to take the background color off. No, because we've got content in there. Thought I put a background, I did. So I'm going to hit trash that, so now I've got my content here. I think I want a little bit more space below these pictures, so on the figure, I'm just going to do a bottom margin. Because we took everything on 0, right? So I think on the bottom margin, I'm just going to do like a, I don't know. Should we do 1%? We can guess. We can go 2%. Why are you putting it everywhere, Dreamweaver? Don't do that to me. Trash. 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 Why would you do such things? Live view, design view. Don't mess with me. I will figure you out. Alright. Maybe I won't figure it out. I want bottom margin on my figure. Nothing else. What if I go to pixels, 10 pixels? 10 pixel. I'm on the right figure, right? Figure, 10 pixel bottom margin. Alright, if I don't get this to work, I'll figure that out later. This is what happens all the time. Why are you going on the left? We don't need you there. Okay. Refresh. Refresh. Trash. Save. Firefox. Alright. 0. I just can't let this win. Okay, 0, that's gone. Uncheck that. Let's go 2%. What did I do? See, it would have been easier just to hand code this. This is where Dreamweaver becomes helpful sometimes and not helpful other times. So let's see what we got going on. 2% might not be enough to actually see any space. But we're all right. We got better. So there's a good experience in Dreamweaver trying to help us out, and it's being too helpful. I don't even know what it was doing. I should have just went into my style sheet, and on the figure, wherever I put it, could have just wrote that out. And it would have been a lot faster, but that's okay. We're going to use Dreamweaver as much as we can. But just know sometimes it's going to make stuff up. Okay, with that, let's get our spacing down a little bit more on our H heads. So looking at this, we want to get rid of the top margin on pretty much everything, right? So H1, we want to get rid of the top margin, the paragraph to close that up. Get rid of the top margin here, and we'll use the bottom margin of the figure to push that down. Well, let's get rid of the top margin on the H1s, H3s, and paragraphs. So we're going to write a compound selector. And let's go H1, comma, H3, comma, P. We can add stuff to that if we want to. And we're just going to say top margin, U should be 0. Doesn't really do much. You can see it closed it up here, so it lined up the text with the picture. So that's what we wanted. Didn't do anything for the collapse in the text here because we've also got to take the bottom margin off of the heading. So H1 and H3 has to lose the bottom margin in order to close that gap. And the H2 needs to lose its bottom margin. So let's do another compound selector. By compound selector, I mean add it. And we need H1 not to have a bottom, H3 not to have a bottom, and our H2. We're going to keep the bottom margin on the paragraph tag to do that spacing though. And we might have to go and adjust these. I'm trying to combine and be as efficient as possible. Sometimes it's not always possible, but bottom margin on those. Alright, that's working. Let's add a little bit more space below the navigation. So instead of adding a top margin to the main element and a top margin to the sidebar, how about we add a bottom margin to the navigation and see what happens. Alright, let's try that. Let's go towards our navigation, page nav, bottom margin. I was kind of using 2%, so I'm just going to go with 2% on that. And we got a 2% margin there. Separate all that out. Again, live view is pretty accurate. Design view is actually not accurate right now at all. So don't be deceived by this. You can use it to see that I'm doing something here. Bottom margin, 2%. Get me out of this area. I keep erasing stuff. I'm sure this is not happening to you guys, just to me. Preview. Yay! Style the text, right? So we got to style that text in there. And so this is in the header element, so I'll do one more compound selector. And I'm going to call this the, what are we? This is the page header, right? Dot page header H1. So I'm targeting just the H1 in the page header. And I'm going to give it, oh, I don't know, let's give it a text color. I think I gave it like a maroon. I'm just going to guess here. Maroon. And I didn't see anything change here because in my source code, I don't have any H1s in the header yet. So I've got my header, it's just plain text. Command 1. There we go. Now we're talking. We had to connect the HTML and the CSS. So in my designer panel, let's go ahead and I'm just going to do a left margin on that. Should I do a top margin? See what happens. Top margin, that's not going to work. What if I did it in my page header, put some padding on the top? Alright, so that's working pretty good, I guess. But we're getting this big gap underneath. So we have a 90 pixel height, right? So if we add a little bit of padding to the top of that, we're actually going to have to remove whatever we add from 90 and just kind of change the height on that. So I'll just go 20 just for a nice easy number. and then that means I got to make this one 70 in order to maintain the same height. So the 70 plus the 20 equals 90. I can't, if I had 90 and 20, it'd actually be 110, and that's where the gap came from. So when I added some padding to the top, I had to take a little bit off the height to kind of make that work. Alright, I'm going to go to the body area, because this is something we should do as well. And in the text area, I'm going to set a font family. And I'm going to use the good old-fashioned, let's just do the Helvetica New area, the Gotham, just to kind of get that same font style. Command S, because when we preview in Chrome, let's see what happens. We should be able to see our text now. Chrome has been requiring us to add a font family to the body, which is good practice to do anyway, so thank you, Chrome, for making me do things right. And let's see if this crashes on us now. Well, this way, sorry for the length of the video, but I just thought it was important that, kind of go step by step through this, and if you don't have me in class, or, you can't talk to me on a regular basis, then you can at least kind of see how I approach kind of going through this. Slow going. I'm going to blame how long this video is on my browser trying to render. I don't, lots of stuff there. The device preview. Maybe I can fast forward through this. Yep, that's what I'm going to do. Fast forward. Taking forever. There we go. It's back. And Chrome works. Yay! Look at how fluid we are. Pretty fluid. Not that I would make this my website. But it's pretty fluid, and if this one puppy in the corner isn't on there, it doesn't bother me. I still have a nice little header image on that. What bothers me right now is these images are not scaling to the size of their container. So that's kind of bogus. So we need to fix that. So we're going to add one more selector to our CSS Designer, and this is going to make our images scalable. So I'm going to hit the plus, and I'm going to target the image tag on this particular one. And again, if I target the image tag, every placed image in my site is going to scale. I may or may not want that. If you don't want that, you can write a class for this with the same settings, and then apply that class just to the images you want to control. In this case, I'm just going to target the image tag. Alright, so image tag, I'm going to say max width %, 100%. That's saying never get larger than what you got optimized to, and then height of auto. Make sure you set that, and that's going to keep it proportionally tall. So again, Command S, save, preview in your selected browser. And now, fingers crossed, we've got a fully fluid site. And this is good. We got a nice fully fluid site. This is going to be the first step in creating our responsive web designs. With a fluid site, we're going to be able to be well set for adding media queries down the road. Again, I had to do this one desktop first, just for the experience of adding floats and getting some control and just reviewing some of the HTML stuff. But in reality, I might have actually, built this mobile first, where I had all the stuff kind of stacked, and then once it hit a certain width, then I would pop that sidebar to the side instead of being stacked top to bottom. So we're going to tackle that mobile first and mobile design stuff coming up in the future. But right now, I just wanted some practice in fluidity and the box model layout. So with that, I think that's it for this video. Anything else that I missed? Nope, I don't think so. I think that's it. Well, of course I missed my Flash Player update, because who doesn't miss those? Alright, well, we'll see you next time. I'm going to go start working on div layout number 2 to see if I can give you some hints on that as well. Otherwise, stay tuned for more videos. Thanks a lot.